Have you ever felt like there's something more beyond what you can see? Something just out of reach that your soul desperately longs to touch? Have you ever wondered why Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness? Why the mystics of old spoke of visions that transcended time and space? Why the ancient texts describe doorways to realms that exist beyond our physical perception? Tonight, I'm going to share with you a practice so profound, so carefully guarded throughout the centuries, that it was deliberately removed from mainstream Christian teaching. This is not metaphor. This is not symbolism. This is an actual technique, a specific movement of the eyes that Jesus himself taught to his closest disciples, a practice that opens what the ancient Gnostics called the ninth dimension of consciousness. You don't need years of training. You don't need special equipment. You don't need to travel to sacred sites or seek out hidden masters. What you need is already within you, waiting to be activated. By the end of this message, you will possess the knowledge that has been kept from you, the key that unlocks the door to realms of consciousness that most people never even know exist. Before we go deeper into this ancient practice, we must understand what the ninth dimension actually represents in Gnostic cosmology and early Christian mysticism. The Gnostics understood that reality is not a single layer, but multiple dimensions of existence, each vibrating at different frequencies, each containing different levels of truth and divine presence. The physical world we inhabit, the world of matter and form, represents only the densest, slowest vibration of consciousness. Above it, or perhaps more accurately, interpenetrating it, exist higher dimensions where time operates differently, where thought manifests instantly, where the barriers between self and divine dissolve into pure knowing. The ninth dimension, in particular, represents what the ancient texts call the pleroma, the fullness of divine light, the realm where all paradoxes resolve, where the many become one without losing their individuality, where the human soul remembers its true origin and destiny. When Jesus spoke in the Gospel of Thomas, saying, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not have will destroy you." He was speaking directly about this awakening, this activation of dormant capacities within human consciousness that allow us to perceive and navigate these higher dimensions. The early Christians, those who followed Jesus most closely before the teachings were standardized and sanitized by institutional authority, practiced techniques of consciousness expansion that were later suppressed, hidden away in texts that were buried in the desert, forgotten in caves, preserved only by those who understood their sacred importance. I want you to pause for just a moment, because what I'm about to ask you might be the most important question you answer today. Have you ever experienced a moment, perhaps just a flash, where you felt absolutely connected to something vast and loving, where time seemed to stop, where you knew, not believed, but truly knew, that you are more than this body, more than this lifetime? If you have, I want you to type in the comments, "I remember." Just those two words, "I remember," because that memory, that fleeting glimpse of your true nature, that is precisely what we are going to expand and stabilize through this ancient practice. Your comment isn't just for me. It's a beacon for others who have felt the same thing, but thought they were alone, thought they were imagining it, thought there was something wrong with them for sensing realities beyond the material. When you share your experience, You give permission to others to acknowledge their own. You create a field of collective awakening. So please, take a moment right now and type in the comments, "I remember." Let your voice be part of this ancient chorus of souls who refuse to forget what they truly are. And now, let's continue this journey together, knowing that we walk this path not alone, but surrounded by fellow seekers who have heard the same call echoing through the corridors of their souls. The practice I'm about to share with you comes from a specific passage in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, one of the texts discovered at Nag Hammadi in 1945. In this text, Mary describes a teaching that Jesus gave privately, a teaching about the ascent of the soul through different levels of reality. She speaks of how the soul must learn to see differently, to move its attention in ways that bypass the ordinary filters of perception. The text uses coded language, as many of these documents do, speaking of turning the inner eye upward and allowing the vision to spiral into the center. For centuries, scholars debated what these phrases meant, treating them as pure metaphor. But the Desert Fathers, the Christian mystics who retreated into the Egyptian wilderness in the early centuries after Christ, understood these instructions literally. They practiced specific techniques of eye movement and visual focus that induced altered states of consciousness, states in which they reported visions of angelic realms, direct communication with divine presence, and experiences of unity with the cosmic Christ consciousness that Jesus embodied. These practices were never written down explicitly because they were considered too powerful, too sacred, too easily misunderstood by those who were not properly prepared. Instead, they were passed from teacher to student, whispered in caves, demonstrated in darkness, protected by layers of symbolism and allegory. But the core technique survived, preserved in fragments, hinted at in mysterious passages, waiting for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. The technique itself is deceptively simple, which is precisely why it works. Complexity is often the ego's way of keeping us trapped in the mind, convincing us that spiritual breakthrough requires elaborate rituals or years of arduous practice. But Jesus taught in parables precisely because the deepest truths are simple, accessible to anyone with sincere intention and open heart. Here is what you will do tonight, in the quiet of your own space, when the world has settled and your mind has released its grip on the day's concerns. Sit comfortably where you will not be disturbed. Close your eyes and take several deep breaths, allowing your body to relax, your shoulders to drop, your jaw to soften. Now, with your eyes still closed, become aware of your closed eyelids as a screen, a canvas upon which inner light can play. Notice any colors, any patterns, any subtle movements of light that appear against the darkness. Don't force anything. Simply observe. After a few moments of this gentle observation, begin to move your closed eyes slowly upward, as if you were trying to look at a point just above the center of your forehead, that space known in many traditions as the third eye, or the seat of intuition. Don't strain. Don't force your eyes into an uncomfortable position. The movement is subtle, gentle, a soft upward roll of the eyes behind closed lids. As you hold your gaze in this upward position, you may begin to notice a change in the quality of darkness, perhaps a deepening, perhaps a sense of space opening up, perhaps the appearance of subtle lights or geometric patterns. Some people describe it as looking into deep space, into a field of stars. Others experience it as waves of color or luminous mist. Whatever you perceive, remain present with it, breathing slowly, keeping your eyes in that gentle upward position. Now comes the crucial element, the secret that makes this more than just a relaxation exercise. As you maintain this upward gaze, silently speak these words in your mind. I am the light that illumines all things. I am the All. The All came forth from me, and the All returned to me. These words come directly from the Gospel of Thomas, saying 77, and they serve as a key, a frequency that aligns your consciousness with the higher dimensions we seek to access. As you repeat these words, something begins to shift. The sense of being a separate self, isolated and small, starts to dissolve. You may feel yourself expanding, your awareness growing larger than your body, larger than the room, reaching into vast spaces that were always there, but hidden from ordinary perception. This is where many people experience what can only be described as a breakthrough, a moment when the veil between dimensions becomes transparent. Some report seeing sacred geometry, intricate patterns of light that seem to contain infinite information, mathematical beauty that speaks directly to the soul without need for intellectual interpretation. Others experience a profound sense of presence, as if they have entered a space where they are fully known, completely seen, utterly loved by a consciousness that is both within them and infinitely beyond them. Some hear what they describe as celestial music, harmonies that do not come through the physical ears, but resonate directly in the bones, in the cells, in the quantum field that underlies material existence. And some, those who are ready, experience what the mystics call unitive consciousness, a state in which all separation dissolves, where the experiencer, the experience, and that which is experienced merge into a single field of knowing. This is not loss of self. It is discovery of true self, the self that has always existed beyond the limitations of ego, beyond the constraints of linear time, beyond the illusion that you are merely a physical body moving through a material world. In this state, you understand directly, not through belief or faith, but through immediate experience, that you are a fractal of the divine, a holographic expression of the infinite, a unique and precious point of consciousness through which the universe comes to know itself. You understand that the same power that spoke through Jesus, that performed miracles, that conquered death, lives within you, has always lived within you, waiting only for recognition, for activation, for permission to express fully. The ancient Gnostics taught that humanity suffers from a kind of amnesia, a forgetting of our true nature and origin. We are, they said, divine sparks trapped in matter, gods who have forgotten their divinity, sleepwalking through incarnation after incarnation, hypnotized by the material world into believing that this physical existence is all there is. The archons, the rulers of this dimension, benefit from our forgetfulness. They feed on our fear, our ignorance, our belief in limitation. They have created systems of control, both external and internalized, that keep us locked in narrow bands of perception, unable to access the fuller spectrum of consciousness that is our birthright. But there is a way out, a way through, a method of escape from this prison that is not really a prison at all, but a school, a training ground, a sacred opportunity to learn mastery in the densest dimensions of reality. That method is gnosis, direct knowledge, unmediated experience of the divine, not belief in someone else's experience, Not faith in doctrines handed down by authorities, but your own direct encounter with the living presence that permeates all existence. This is what Jesus truly taught, not belief in him as the sole, unique Son of God, but recognition that what he expressed, we can all express. Not worship of his person, but embodiment of his consciousness. These things I do, you shall do also, and greater things than these shall you do. He said in the Gospel of John, this is not poetry. This is promise. This is instruction. This is invitation. When you practice the eye movement technique tonight, understand that you are not simply performing a mechanical exercise. You are engaging in an act of rebellion against everything that has told you that you are small, powerless, separate from the divine. You are reclaiming your inheritance as a child of the infinite, a co-creator of reality, a being whose consciousness extends far beyond the boundaries of your physical form. The ninth dimension that opens through this practice is not somewhere else. It is right here, right now, interpenetrating this very moment, waiting to be perceived. It is not that you are traveling to another place. It is that you are learning to see what has always been present, but filtered out by the limitations of ordinary perception. Imagine that your entire life you have been looking at the world through a narrow slit in a thick curtain. You can see a small portion of what exists, and you naturally assume that this small slice represents the whole of reality. But then, someone shows you how to pull back the curtain, how to widen the aperture of perception, and suddenly you see that the world is vastly larger, infinitely more beautiful, unimaginably more complex than you ever dreamed. This is what the eye movement practice does. It pulls back the curtain. It adjusts the frequency of your consciousness so that you can perceive dimensions of reality that were always there, but previously invisible to you. Let me share with you what happens in the brain and the energetic body when you practice this technique correctly. The upward rolling of the eyes stimulates the pineal gland, that small pine cone-shaped organ nestled deep in the center of the brain that ancient mystics called the seat of the soul. Modern science is beginning to understand what the ancients knew intuitively. The pineal gland is not just a vestigial organ, but a sophisticated transducer, a biological antenna that can perceive electromagnetic frequencies far beyond the visible light spectrum. When activated through specific practices, the pineal gland begins to produce compounds that alter consciousness, most notably dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, the same molecule found in sacred plants used by shamans throughout history to access visionary states. But you don't need external substances. Your body can produce these consciousness-expanding molecules naturally when you know how to activate the internal pharmacy. The upward eye movement, combined with the sacred phrase from the Gospel of Thomas, creates a resonance pattern that tells the pineal gland to begin its alchemical work. As it does, your brainwave patterns shift from the beta frequency of ordinary waking consciousness down into theta and even delta ranges, the frequencies associated with deep meditation, lucid dreaming, and mystical experience. At the same time, the energetic centers along your spine, what yogic traditions call chakras, begin to activate in a specific sequence. The root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and finally the crown, each opening in turn like flowers, responding to the inner sun of awakened consciousness. As the crown chakra fully activates, you experience what feels like an opening at the top of your head, a portal through which higher dimensional energies can flow in and lower dimensional densities can flow out. This is the moment of breakthrough, the point at which you cross the threshold between ordinary reality and the ninth dimension. What awaits you in this dimension? What will you discover when you successfully open this doorway that Jesus himself used to perform miracles, to heal the sick, to know the thoughts of others, to materialize and dematerialize his physical form? You will discover first that time is not what you thought it was. In the ninth dimension, past, present, and future exist simultaneously, not as separate points on a line, but as aspects of an eternal now. You may find yourself accessing memories from what seem to be other lifetimes, not because you are literally remembering previous incarnations, but because you are tapping into the collective consciousness, the Akashic field, the infinite library of all human and cosmic experience. You may receive information about future possibilities, not as fixed predictions, but as probability streams that you can consciously navigate and choose. You will discover that thought is the primary creative force of reality. In the physical dimension, there is a time delay between thought and manifestation, which is mercy, because it gives us time to learn, to refine our intentions, to understand the power we wield. But in higher dimensions, thought manifests instantly. This is why Jesus could command storms to cease, could multiply loaves and fishes, could walk on water. He was operating from a dimension where consciousness directly structures reality, where will and manifestation are one. You will discover unconditional love, not as a sentiment or emotion, but as the fundamental fabric of existence, the force that holds atoms together, that guides planets in their orbits, that draws souls toward wholeness and integration. This love is so vast, so intelligent, so utterly beyond our ordinary understanding, that when you first encounter it directly, you may weep, not from sadness, but from recognition, from the overwhelming relief of coming home after a long journey through darkness and forgetting. Now, I want to give you specific instructions for your practice tonight, because knowing the theory is not enough. You must do the work. You must take the step. You must be willing to move beyond comfortable belief into the sometimes disorienting territory of direct experience. Find a time when you can sit undisturbed for at least 20 minutes. Turn off your devices, dim the lights. Sit in a comfortable position with your spine relatively straight, either in a chair with your feet flat on the floor or on a cushion on the ground. Take several deep breaths, breathing in through your nose and out, through your mouth, releasing any tension you're holding in your body. When you feel settled, close your eyes and begin the practice exactly as I described earlier. Gently roll your eyes upward behind closed lids, gazing toward the space above and between your eyebrows. Hold this position softly, without straining. Begin to silently repeat the phrase, "I am the light that illumines all things. I am the All. The All came forth from me, and the All returned to me." Repeat it slowly, letting each word resonate in your awareness. Continue for at least 10 minutes, though you may find yourself wanting to remain in this state much longer once you begin to feel the shifts occurring. If you feel pressure in your forehead, this is normal. It's the activation of dormant neural pathways, the opening of the third eye center. If you see lights, colors, or geometric patterns, don't be alarmed. This is your consciousness beginning to perceive frequencies beyond the ordinary spectrum. If you feel your body becoming very heavy or very light, if you lose sense of where your physical boundaries are, if you feel yourself expanding or floating, remain calm. These are all signs that you are successfully transitioning into higher dimensional awareness. Stay with the practice. Trust the process. Your consciousness knows how to navigate these realms. You've done this before, in other times, in other forms. You're simply remembering how. After your practice, take time to journal what you experienced. Write down any visions, any insights, any feelings or sensations that arose. Don't judge or analyze. Simply record. Over time, as you continue this practice nightly, you will begin to notice changes in your waking life as well. Synchronicities will multiply. You'll find yourself knowing things you have no logical way of knowing. You'll sense the thoughts and feelings of others. You'll have dreams that feel more real than waking life, dreams in which you receive teachings, meet guides, access information from the collective unconscious. Your intuition will sharpen dramatically. Decisions that once seemed difficult will become clear. Paths forward will illuminate themselves. This is not magic in the sense of supernatural intervention. This is the natural result of expanding your consciousness beyond the narrow band of ordinary perception. You're not gaining new abilities. You're recovering abilities that were always yours but have been dormant, waiting for activation. You're becoming what you were always meant to be, what you truly are beneath the layers of conditioning and forgetting. You're becoming a fully conscious human being, awake in all dimensions simultaneously, operating with the full spectrum of your divine nature activated and expressed. The reason this teaching was suppressed, the reason it was hidden away in texts that were buried and forgotten, is because awakened humans cannot be controlled. When you know directly that you are an eternal being, that death is merely a transition, that your consciousness continues beyond the dissolution of the physical body, fear loses its power over you, and fear is the primary tool of control. When you know that you are a fractal of the infinite, that the same creative power that spoke the cosmos into existence flows through you, limitations dissolve. Lack becomes impossible because you understand that you live in an abundant universe that responds to consciousness. When you experience unity consciousness, when you feel your deep interconnection with all beings, manipulation through division becomes ineffective. You cannot be turned against your brothers and sisters when you know that they are literally part of you, that their suffering is your suffering, that their liberation is your liberation. This is why the institutional church, in its hunger for power and control, systematically removed these teachings from Christianity, declared Gnostic texts heretical, persecuted those who practiced direct mystical experience, not because these teachings were false or dangerous, but because they were true and liberating. They gave power back to the individual. They eliminated the need for intermediaries between the human and the divine. They revealed that the kingdom of heaven is not some distant realm. You reach after death if you follow the right rules and believe the right doctrines, but a state of consciousness available here and now to anyone willing to do the inner work of awakening. Tonight, you stand at a threshold. You have the knowledge, you have the technique, you have the invitation. What you do with this information will determine whether this is just another interesting video you watched and forgot, or the beginning of a genuine transformation in your life. The ninth dimension waits for no one, but it welcomes everyone. It doesn't care about your past mistakes, your current circumstances, your religious background, or lack thereof. It responds only to sincere intention and consistent practice. If you want this, if you truly want to expand beyond the limitations that have held you captive, you must commit to the practice. Not just once, not just when you feel like it, but every night with discipline and devotion until the doorway remains permanently open, until you can move fluidly between dimensions, until you become a bridge between heaven and earth, spirit and matter, the eternal and the temporal. This is your inheritance. This is your birthright. This is what Jesus died to protect and lived to demonstrate. He showed you what a fully awakened human being looks like. He showed you what becomes possible when someone operates from the higher dimensions while still inhabiting a physical body. And he told you again and again, in ways that could not be more clear, that everything he did, you can do too. Not someday, not in some future life. Now, tonight. With this practice that I have shared with you, if this resonates with you, if something in your soul recognizes the truth of what I'm sharing, I want you to do something for me and for yourself. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the other practices, the other teachings, the other keys to awakening that I'll be sharing. This is just the beginning. There is so much more to reveal, so many more doorways to open, so many more dimensions to explore. But more importantly, commit to the practice. Try it tonight. Don't wait. Don't tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow or when circumstances are more perfect. Do it now, when the energy of this teaching is still fresh, when the possibility still feels real, before the doubting mind has a chance to talk you out of your own liberation. And then come back to the comments and share what you experienced, not for validation, not for attention, but because your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to take the first step on their own journey. We are all in this together, all waking up from the same dream, all remembering the same truth that we are so much more than we have been told. Your voice matters. Your experience matters. You matter. And I am here, we are here, a community of awakening souls, ready to support you as you step into the fullness of who you truly are. The ninth dimension is calling. Jesus showed the way. Now it's your turn to walk the path. I'll see you in the higher realms.